The water started rising at exactly 5:47 a.m. on what I now call Victory Day. I stood on the hillside overlooking Pine Ridge Lake, coffee steaming in my old army mug, watching 20 years of engineering experience play out in real time. The pre-dawn air smelled like pine needles and justice. Below me, Victoria Ashford-Pemberton's illegally constructed marina was about to learn why you don't mess with an Army Corps engineer who knows federal water law. The first dock piling shifted at 5:52 a.m. I heard it even from 300 yards away, that beautiful groaning sound of pressure-treated lumber realizing it's fighting a battle it can't win. "That's for you, Grandma," I whispered, raising my mug to the sky. 6 months ago, I never would have imagined orchestrating the controlled flooding of an HOA president's pet project. 6 months ago, I was just Jake Morrison, newly retired Army Corps engineer, coming home to bury my grandmother and inherit her lakefront property. I thought my fighting days were behind me. I was wrong. The second piling went at 5:56 a.m., and with it, about $175,000 worth of composite decking started its journey toward becoming very expensive driftwood. Down at the marina, lights were starting to flicker on in the clubhouse, a gaudy McMansion-styled building that violated at least 7 federal regulations I could name off the top of my head. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment if you've ever dealt with an HOA that thought they were above federal law, because that's exactly what Victoria thought. Right up until this morning, but I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand why I was standing on that hillside, authorized by the United States Army Corps of Engineers to release 2.3 million gallons of water per minute into Pine Ridge Lake, you need to know how this all started. You need to know about the grandmother who raised me, the property she left behind, and the woman who thought she could steal it. Most importantly, you need to know about the 1847 water rights document that Victoria Ashford-Pemberton really should have researched before she decided to declare war on a federal engineer. The marina's floating boat slip started breaking free at 6:03 a.m. 27 boats, ranging from a $45,000 Bayliner to a $450,000 Cobalt, began their unplanned voyage across Pine Ridge Lake. I took another sip of coffee. Black, just like Grandma used to make it. This is the story of how a fake HOA violation turned into a federal case, how a grandmother's last gift became a weapon against corruption, and how sometimes, just sometimes, the good guys win. But first, let me tell you about coming home. Fort Belvoir, Virginia, March 15th, 2024. 1:32 p.m. After 20 years of service, my discharge papers felt heavier than my ruck ever did. Colonel Sarah Mitchell handed them to me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You sure about this, Jake? The Corps needs engineers like you. That flood control system you designed in Houston saved lives." I folded the papers carefully. The texture was smooth, official, final. "It's time, Colonel. My grandmother needs me." That was a lie. Grandma had been dead for 6 weeks. She'd passed while I was deployed in Kuwait, overseeing water infrastructure projects. The Red Cross notification had reached me at 0300 local time. I'd stood in the desert heat, reading about how she'd died peacefully in her sleep and felt like someone had ripped my anchor away. "Where's home?" Colonel Mitchell asked. "North Carolina, little town called Pine Ridge, about an hour north of Charlotte." "Got plans?" I thought about Grandma's letter sitting in my duffel bag, her handwriting shaky but determined. "The house is yours, Jake. Take care of our lake." "Yeah," I said. "I've got plans." The drive from Virginia to North Carolina took 7 hours. I could have made it in 5, but I stopped at every scenic overlook, delaying the moment I'd have to walk into that empty house. The Blue Ridge Mountains rose around me, ancient and patient. The smell of Virginia giving way to Carolina, less oak, more pine. I knew these roads. Grandma had driven them with me countless times after my parents died. I was 8, angry at the world, and she was 62, suddenly raising her grandson. She never complained. Not once. Exit 47 off I-77, the Pine Ridge exit. Nothing had changed and everything had changed. The Texaco where Grandpa taught me to check oil was now a BP with a Starbucks attached. Miller's Hardware had become a boutique called Serenity Now. But McGraw's Diner was still there, American flag out front, same cracked parking lot. I pulled in, needed to ease into this. Inside, the smell hit me like a physical thing. Bacon grease, coffee, and something indefinable that meant home. Betty McGraw was still working the counter, her hair grayer but her smile unchanged. "Jake Morrison," she said, not asking. "Heard you were coming home. I'm sorry about Rose." Grandma, the strongest woman I'd ever known. "Thanks, Betty. Just coffee." She poured, without asking how I took it. "In Pine Ridge," people remembered. "You been out to the house yet?" "Heading there now." Betty's face did something complicated. "Jake, You should know. Things have changed out at the lake. That HOA. HOA. I set the mug down harder than intended. What HOA? Grandma's property isn't in any HOA. Well, that's the thing. Betty glanced around, then leaned closer. The smell of her perfume, white shoulders, same as always, mixed with the diner scents. This woman, Victoria, something. She moved in about 5 years back, started throwing her weight around, formed this homeowners association, been causing all kinds of trouble for the old-timers. My jaw tightened. 20 years of military discipline kept my voice level. Grandma never mentioned any HOA. Rose wouldn't have paid them any mind. You know how she was. But Jake? Betty's voice dropped further. They've been going after folks. The Hendersons, the Changs, even old Tom Martinez. Forcing them out with fines and such. Tom Martinez. I knew that name. Marine, Vietnam, used to take me fishing. Tom still around? Barely holding on. Lives 2 properties down from your grandma's place. Betty straightened as another customer walked in. You be careful out there, Jake. These aren't our kind of people. I left a 20 for a $2 coffee. Betty needed it more than I did. The drive to Grandma's took 15 minutes. Should have taken 10, but they'd added 3 traffic circles. Progress. Then I turned onto Lake Road, and my breath caught. Where modest cabins used to sit, mansions had sprouted like concrete mushrooms. 3-car garages, circular driveways, lawn ornaments that probably cost more than a year of my army pay. And gates. Christ, everyone had gates. Everyone except Grandma. Her mailbox was exactly as I remembered. Hand-painted roses on white metal. Morrison in faded green letters. The driveway was still dirt and gravel. The sound under my tires was pure childhood. That specific crunch that meant I was almost home. The house sat like it had for 90 years. White clapboard siding, green metal roof, wraparound porch with the swing Grandpa built. The smell of pine was overwhelming here, mixed with lake water and the faint sweetness of the honeysuckle she'd refused to cut back. But there was something else, a bright orange notice on the front door. I got out slowly, boots crunching on familiar gravel. The notice was dated 2 weeks ago. Notice of violation. Pine Ridge Estates. Homeowners Association. Property 447 Lake Road. Violations multiple, see attached. Fine $47,385, $50 payment. Due 30 days, $47,000. I ripped it down, the paper crinkling in my fist. That's when I heard the horses. The sound came from the east, hoofbeats on manicured grass. Not the working quarter horses I remembered from childhood. These were different, prancing, expensive. I turned to see 4 riders approaching along what used to be the public lake path. Now it was bordered by white vinyl fencing that probably cost more per foot than I made in a day. The lead rider was exactly what you'd expect if you ordered entitled suburban equestrian from a catalog. Late 50s, trying to look 35, blonde hair that defied nature, pulled back in a bun so tight it was giving her a free facelift, jodhpurs that looked painted on, a riding jacket with more brass than a general's dress uniform. This had to be Victoria. She rode like she owned the air around her, which, given the amount of Chanel No. 5 wafting my way, she apparently thought she did. Behind her, 3 other riders formed a perfect triangle. A power formation. They stopped at my property line, or what she probably thought was her domain's border. The horses looked better cared for than some soldiers I'd known. That told me everything about priorities around here. You must be Jacob, she said, managing to look down at me despite being on my property. The accent was trying for British aristocracy, but landing somewhere around Atlanta suburbs. I'm Victoria Ashford-Pemberton, president of the Pine Ridge Estates Homeowners Association. She said it like I should curtsy. It's Jake, I said, and this is private property. Her laugh tinkled like expensive crystal about to shatter. Oh, Jacob, Jake, everything within Pine Ridge Estates is under HOA jurisdiction. Didn't you receive our notices? I held up the crumpled orange paper. This notice? The one trying to find my dead grandmother 47 grand? $47,385.50, one of her riders corrected. Male, mid-40s, the kind of guy who peaked in high school and never got over it. I'm Brad Thompson, HOA treasurer. The fines are quite specific. Specific? I tasted the word. What exactly did my 93-year-old grandmother do? Rob a bank? Victoria's smile could have frosted windows. Your grandmother was repeatedly informed about her violations, the unauthorized boathouse, the non-conforming fence, the unapproved landscaping, the illegal pier, the... Hold up. I stepped forward. The horses shifted, but I dealt with cavalry in Iraq. These pampered ponies didn't worry me. Illegal pier? That pier was built in 1947, my grandfather. Which makes it non-conforming to current HOA architectural standards, the third writer chimed in. Female, younger, trying too hard with makeup that looked professionally applied at 6 a.m. I'm Melissa Worthington, Architectural Committee Chair. All structures must conform to the Pine Ridge Estates Aesthetic Guidelines, established 2019. The pier was built in 1947, the house in 1934, but their guidelines from 2019 somehow applied retroactively. And you are? I asked the fourth writer, just to complete the set. Richard Pemberton, he said, like I should recognize the name. Attorney. Also, he smiled the smile of a man who enjoyed petty power. County Commissioner. Ah, Victoria's husband. The corruption trifecta was complete. Let me make sure I understand, I said, using my sergeant's voice, the one that could cut through helicopter noise. You formed an HOA in 2019. You're trying to apply your rules to property that's been in my family for 90 years, and you're fining us for structures that predate your entire organization by decades. Victoria's laugh was less tinkling this time. The law is quite clear, Jacob. All properties within Pine Ridge Estates are subject to HOA governance. Your grandmother had ample opportunity to bring her property into compliance. Compliance. Another word to taste. It was bitter. And if we don't pay your made-up fines? Richard, the attorney husband, spoke up. Then the HOA will be forced to foreclose. State law allows us to recover unpaid fines through forced sale of the property. Convenient, I said. Tell me, what happens to properties after you force sales? Something flickered across Victoria's Botoxed features. They're sold at fair market value, of course. To whom? Qualified buyers who will bring the properties up to community standards. The horses were getting restless. Even they could smell the bullshit. I'll need to see all the documentation, I said. The HOA formation papers, the CCRs, voting records, everything. Of course, Richard said too smoothly. You can request those at the next HOA meeting. First Tuesday of the month. Although he pretended to check his phone. You'll need to pay a document review fee, $500 per document set. I smiled for the first time. It wasn't a nice smile. Actually, Richard, you're a lawyer. You should know this. Those are public records, available at the county courthouse, for free. His face flushed above his polo collar. Nevertheless, Victoria cut in, the fines remain. You have... She made a show of calculating. 16 days to pay. Otherwise, we'll be forced to begin foreclosure proceedings. Forced, I repeated. You keep using that word. She wheeled her horse around, the others following suit. Welcome to Pine Ridge Estates, Jacob. I do hope you'll be more cooperative than your grandmother. She was quite stubborn. Such an unfortunate trait in the elderly. I watched them ride off, hoofbeats fading on their manicured path. The smell of horse and entitlement lingered. Inside the house, everything was exactly as Grandma left it. The smell of lavender and old wood. Her coffee mug on the kitchen table. The Franklin County Gazette, 6 weeks old, folded to the crossword. 4-letter word for snake. Starts with V. I pulled out my phone and called the only lawyer I trusted. Martinez Law. The voice was gruff, familiar. Tom, it's Jake Morrison. A pause. Jake, Rose's grandson? Heard you were coming home, son. Sorry about your grandma. She was good people. Thanks, Tom. Listen, I just met Victoria Ashford-Pemberton. The laugh was bitter. Ah, the queen bee found you already. Let me guess, riding that $1 million horse telling you about fines. $47,000 worth. Christ, they hit me for $32,000. The Changs for $55,000. Henderson had to sell last month. Tom, is this legal? A longer pause. I heard papers shuffling. On the surface, maybe they dotted their I's, crossed their T's. But Jake, something stinks. Properties getting forced to sale, all ending up with the same buyers, all getting flipped to developers. Your grandma, God rest her, she figured something was up, started digging through county records, but then she died. Yeah? Tom's voice was heavy. Look, can you meet me tomorrow? McGraw's Diner, 0700? There's some things you need to know. And Jake, watch your six. These people don't play fair. After I hung up, I walked through the house. Every room held memories. The kitchen where Grandma taught me to make biscuits. The living room where Grandpa's flag still hung. The porch where I'd learned to read. In Grandma's office, really just a converted bedroom, I found her files. Meticulous, organized, and there, in a folder marked HOA nonsense, 6 months of research. Maps, property transfers, corporate filings, financial records, all in her careful handwriting. The last entry was dated a week before she died. Jake will know what to do. I sat in her chair, smelling her perfume still faint in the fabric, and started reading. Outside, the sun set over Pine Ridge Lake, painting the water red. Somewhere across that water, Victoria Ashford-Pemberton was probably planning her next move. She thought she was dealing with just another grieving grandson. She had no idea what was coming. 6:45 hours. McGraw's Diner. I arrived 15 minutes early. Old habits die hard. The morning air was crisp, 42 degrees, the kind of Carolina morning that made you grateful for coffee. Betty already had a mug waiting at the corner booth. Black, no sugar, the smell of bacon grease and righteousness. Tom Martinez walked in at 0655, still moving like a Marine despite the cane. 73 years old, silver hair high and tight, eyes that had seen too much but hadn't given up. He slid into the booth with a grunt. "Knee acting up?" I asked. "Shrapnel from 71 says good morning when it's cold." He wrapped his hands around his coffee mug. "How'd your meeting with Queen Victoria go?" I told him about the horses, the fines, the threats. His jaw tightened with each detail. "Same playbook," he said. "Show up in force, overwhelm with legal terms, demand money, rinse and repeat." "What's their real game, Tom?" He pulled out a folder, weathered hands, careful with the papers. "Your grandma and I started tracking this 2 years ago. Look." The documents painted a clear picture. 17 properties voluntarily sold after HOA fines, all purchased by different LLCs. All those LLCs traced back to one parent company, Wellington Development Group. "Wellington," I said. "Victoria's maiden name was Wellington?" Bingo. Tom's smile was sharp. But here's where it gets interesting. The development applications were filed before the properties were even listed for sale. They knew they were getting them. That's conspiracy to commit fraud, RICO territory if we can prove the pattern. "We?" Tom raised an eyebrow. "You think I'm letting them get away with this?" "Your grandma said you'd say that." He pulled out another paper. "She also said to give you this." It was a hand-drawn map of the original property lines around Pine Ridge Lake. Grandma's neat printing marked each plot, but there was something else. Blue lines indicating water flow, elevation markers, notes about seasonal flooding. "Rose was many things," Tom said. "But did you know she worked for the county surveyor's office for 30 years? I hadn't known that. Another piece of grandma I'd missed. She found something," Tom continued, "in the old records, but she said you'd understand it better than anyone." I studied the map, the blue lines, water flow patterns, the elevation marks, and there, in the corner, a note. "See County Archive Box, 1847-15. Tom, I need to get to the courthouse." "Thought you might say that." He stood, then paused. "Jake, they've got eyes everywhere. Richard's the county commissioner. His brother-in-law is the sheriff. Hell, half the planning board owes them favors. You sure you want this fight?" I thought about Grandma's empty coffee mug on the kitchen table. "I'm sure. Franklin County Courthouse. 08:30 hours. The building smelled like old paper and bureaucracy. The records clerk, a young woman named Sarah Chen, looked up from her computer with the expression of someone who rarely saw visitors. "Help you?" "I need to access the county archives, specifically Box 1847-15. Her fingers flew over the keyboard. "That's really old, like pre-Civil War old. Those records are in the basement archive. You'll need to fill out a request form." "How long does that take?" "Usually 2 to 3 weeks. I leaned on the counter. "What if I told you it was urgent? Related to property rights?" She looked around, then leaned forward, the smell of jasmine tea on her breath. "Are you Rose Morrison's grandson, the engineer?" "Yes." "Your grandmother was nice to me, only person who ever remembered my birthday." Sarah grabbed a key card. "Follow me." The basement smelled like history. Dust, old leather, decomposing paper. Sarah led me through rows of shelves to a climate-controlled section. 1847, she muttered, checking labels. "Here, box 15. What are you looking for?" "Not sure yet." I lifted the box, surprisingly heavy, but I'll know it when I see it. "I'll leave you to it. Just..." She hesitated. "Be careful. The Ashford-Pembertons have friends everywhere." Alone with the box, I carefully removed documents. Land grants, survey records, water agreements. And then, wrapped in oilcloth, a document that made my heart race. Water rights deed, Pine Ridge Lake and tributaries. Dated May 15th, 1847. The language was archaic but clear. The Morrison property, our property, held senior water rights to Pine Ridge Lake. Not just usage rights, control rights, including the right to manage, direct, and control all water flow for the protection and benefit of said property. In modern terms, we controlled the lake, But there was more. A surveyor's note from 1923 mentioned something about flood control measures, natural spillways, seasonal adjustment points. I photographed everything, then carefully returned the documents. Back upstairs, Sarah was waiting. Find what you needed? Maybe, Sarah. Who handles water rights law around here? That would be the state, but she glanced around again. The Army Corps of Engineers has jurisdiction over navigable waterways, and Pine Ridge Lake connects to the Catawba River system. Army Corps. My people. Thanks, Sarah. I owe you one. Just get those HOA jerks, she whispered. They tried to find my parents for having the wrong color mailbox. 1500 hours. Pine Ridge Estates. HOA meeting. The community center looked like a country club, and a funeral home had an expensive baby. Cream walls, hunter green accents, the smell of false prosperity. About 60 people filled the chairs, mostly older residents looking beaten down. Victoria held court at the front, flanked by her board. A banner read Pine Ridge Estates, Excellence in Community Standards. I sat in the back, studying the crowd. I recognized some faces, the Changs looking defeated, the widow Patterson clutching her purse like a life preserver, and there, 3 rows up, Tom Martinez. First order of business, Victoria announced, her voice carrying that special frequency that made dogs and decent people uncomfortable and heightened the Morrison property violations. Heads turned my way. Sympathy mixed with relief, better me than them. The property at 447 Lake Road remains in violation of multiple HOA standards, Victoria continued. As the heir, Mr. Jacob Morrison has been notified of accumulated fines totaling $47,385.50. It's Jake, I said, standing, and I have some questions about those fines. Richard, the attorney husband, smiled like a shark, sensing blood. Questions can be submitted in writing to the board. There's a $50 processing fee per question. Nervous laughter from the crowd. They'd been trained well. Actually, I said, walking forward, I have questions about the HOA's authority itself, specifically how an organization formed in 2019 claims governance over property deeded in 1847. All properties within the designated boundaries, Richard started. Were those boundaries approved by a vote of all affected property owners? The HOA was established according to state law. That's not what I asked. I was at the front now, close enough to smell Victoria's perfume fighting with her horse obsession. I asked if all property owners voted because I've been reviewing the county records. Interesting reading. Victoria's Botox wouldn't let her frown properly, but she tried. Whatever point you're attempting to make, the point is that 7 of the 17 original property owners never voted, never signed anything, including my grandmother. I pulled out copies of the documents, yet somehow they're all listed as yes votes in your incorporation papers. Murmurs from the crowd. Tom Martinez leaned forward. That's a serious accusation, Richard said, but his voice had lost some shark. It's not an accusation, it's a fact, documented, notarized, and I'm betting if we compared signatures. I let it hang. This is ridiculous, Victoria snapped. The HOA exists. It has legal standing. Your grandmother's property is in violation, and the fines stand. About that property, I said, did you know it holds senior water rights to Pine Ridge Lake? Silence. Beautiful, deafening silence. That's impossible, Brad the treasurer finally said. The HOA controls all common elements, including the lake. The HOA can't control what predates it by 172 years. I turned to address the crowd. How many of you have been fined for boat docks that existed before the HOA? Hands raised slowly. 8, 12, 20. How many for landscaping that was here for decades? More hands. How many had to sell because they couldn't pay the fines? No hands, but I saw faces. Ghosts of neighbors passed. Your time is up, Victoria said coldly. Sit down or be removed. Actually, I'm exercising my right to speak as a property owner. 3 minutes, according to your own bylaws. You haven't paid your dues? Which aren't legally owed if the HOA formation was fraudulent. Richard stood. I'll have you sued for slander. Truth is an absolute defense against slander. I smiled. You're a lawyer. You know that. I turned back to the crowd. I'm not going anywhere, and neither should you. We need to stand together. Enough. Victoria's composure finally cracked. Brad, call security. You have security for a homeowner's meeting? I laughed. What are you afraid of? 2 rent-a-cops appeared, looking uncomfortable. I knew the type. Probably decent guys just trying to make a living. It's okay, I told them. I'm leaving, but this isn't over. As I walked past the seated residents, Mrs. Chang grabbed my hand. Thank you, she whispered. By the time I reached the door, others were standing, whispering. The spell was breaking. Outside, Tom Martinez caught up with me. That was beautiful, son. But you know they're going to come at you hard now. Let them come. I looked back at the community center where Victoria was probably plotting my destruction. I've got some calls to make. Army Corps? For starters, but first I need to understand those water rights, every detail, every implication. Tom grinned. Your grandma would be proud. Maybe, but pride wouldn't protect the property. For that, I'd need more than righteousness. I'd need to be smarter than them. More connected, more ruthless. Good thing the Army taught me all three. Round 1, the utility wars, 0630 hours. 3 days after the HOA meeting. The power went out during my shower. Not a flicker, a full stop. The water, still running on the old well pump's pressure, turned from hot to cold in seconds. I knew it wasn't a coincidence, not after yesterday's water shutoff that took 6 hours to repair, or the mysterious internet outage the day before. I wrapped a towel around myself and grabbed my phone. The power company's automated system informed me there was no reported outage in my area. Of course not. By the time I dressed and got outside, a Pine Ridge Estates Courtesy Patrol golf cart was parked at my property line. Brad the treasurer sat behind the wheel, pretending to check his phone. "Morning, Brad," I called out. "Funny thing, my power just went out." He didn't look up. "That's unfortunate. Old houses have old wiring." "House was rewired in 2018. I've got the permits." "Still." He smiled without looking at me. Things happen. I walked to the utility pole at the property edge. Fresh scratches on the lockbox, the smell of burned electronics. Someone had been here. Things do happen, I agreed, like felony tampering with utility equipment. Federal offense if it affects interstate commerce, which electricity does. Brad's golf cart started moving. "Have a nice day, Mr. Morrison." 3 hours and 4 phone calls later, a utility truck arrived. The technician, a young guy named Marcus, took one look at the meter and whistled. "Someone fried your disconnect," he said. "Looks deliberate. Want me to document this?" Every detail. While Marcus worked, I called Fort Bragg. Still had connections there. "Johnson," the voice answered. "Mike, it's Jake Morrison. I need a favor." "Jake, heard you got out. What's up?" I explained the situation. Mike listened, then laughed. "You're telling me some HOA princess is messing with a Corps engineer? Does she have a death wish? Can you run some names for me? See if any flags pop up? Unofficial-like?" "As unofficial as it gets." "Send 'em over. I'll see what shakes loose." By noon, power was restored, but the message was clear. They could make my life difficult. Time to return the favor. Round 2, the vandalism escalation. It was 47 hours. 1 week later. The security camera caught it all. 3 figures in dark clothing moving across my property toward the boathouse. The infrared showed their faces clearly. Brad's son, Tyler. Victoria's nephew, Austin, and another kid I didn't recognize. I watched from the kitchen window, phone recording everything. They spray-painted "comply or leave" across the boathouse wall. Then Tyler produced a crowbar. The first swing shattered the window Grandpa had installed in 1962. The sound carried across the water like a gunshot. I could have stopped them. Part of me wanted to. But I needed evidence of escalation, needed them to commit. The second window went. Then they started on the door. That's when Tom Martinez's floodlights hit them. The kids froze like deer. Tom's voice boomed across the water. "Sheriff's department has been called. Do not move." They moved, ran like their trust funds depended on it, but not before my cameras caught everything. HD quality, their faces, their license plates, their entitled panic. Tom met me at the boathouse, both of us surveying the damage. "Figured they'd try something," he said. "Been watching. Good thing, too." "You didn't really call the sheriff." "Richard's brother-in-law? Hell no, but they don't know that. We documented everything. Photos, videos, damage estimates. The paint still smelled fresh. Cheap hardware store spray paint, probably charged to Mommy's credit card. This is felony vandalism," I said, "plus trespassing. Conspiracy if their parents knew." "If?" Tom snorted. "Boy, you know they ordered this." By dawn, I'd uploaded everything to 3 different cloud servers. Sent copies to my lawyer in Raleigh, set up automated emails in case anything happened to me. Paranoid? Maybe. But Grandma didn't raise stupid. The confrontation came at 1100 hours. Victoria herself, marching up my driveway in designer boots totally unsuited for gravel. No horse this time, just her and Muscle, 2 guys who looked like they benched more than they thought. "Mr. Morrison," she started, "it's still Jake, and you're trespassing. I'm here to discuss last night's unfortunate incident." "The felony vandalism committed by your nephew? That unfortunate incident?" Her smile could have frozen lava. "Tyler says he saw vandals on your property, came to investigate, you threatened him. I have video showing otherwise. Video can be edited. Faked. My husband knows judges who understand these things. The muscle shifted, trying to look threatening. I'd faced Taliban fighters. These gym bros didn't register. Victoria, I said, using my teaching voice from when I trained privates, let me explain something. I have high-definition video of your nephew and his friends committing multiple felonies. I have Tom Martinez as a witness. I have damage to historic property, which makes it a federal crime. Now you can have Richard talk to his judge friends. But I'll be talking to the U.S. Attorney's Office. Want to guess who wins that fight? Her face went through several colors despite the Botox. What do you want? Drop the fines. Leave me alone. Simple. I can't do that. The HOA has rules. The HOA has fraud, which I'm documenting, every bit of it. She turned on her designer heel. This isn't over. No, I agreed. It's just beginning. Round 3, the bureaucratic assault. The code enforcement officers started arriving 2 days later. County health inspector at $800. Building inspector at $1,000. Zoning compliance at $1,400. Environmental protection at $1,600. Each one apologetic. Each one just doing their job. Each one finding violations that didn't exist. Your septic system appears to be non-conforming, the health inspector said, not meeting my eyes. It was installed in 2019, fully permitted. Here's the paperwork. Yes, well, standards change. The building inspector found issues with the boat dock, the same dock that had survived hurricanes since 1947. The zoning officer questioned whether a single-family residence could have a detached workshop. The environmental guy worried about runoff that didn't exist. I documented everything, every visit, every claim, every veiled threat. Sarah Chen called that evening. Jake, you need to know something. Richard Pemberton just filed an emergency demolition order for your boathouse, claims it's a navigational hazard. That's impossible. It's been there since 1947, I know, but the order's been fast-tracked. You have 72 hours to appeal. 72 hours. I'd planned operations with less time, but this was different. This was Grandma's place. Thanks for the heads up, Sarah. There's more. I did some digging on Wellington Development. They've got plans filed for your section of the lake. Luxury condos, Marina. Golf course expansion. When were these plans filed? 6 months ago. Before Grandma died, they'd been planning this while she was still alive. Sarah, can you get me copies? Already did. Check your email. And Jake, be careful. I heard Richard on the phone yesterday. He mentioned something about permanent solutions. That night, I sat on the porch going through the development plans. 200 luxury units, private yacht club, projected revenue, $180 million. My property was marked as Phase 1, acquisition pending. The sheer arrogance of it. They'd mapped out Grandma's land like she was already gone, like I was already beaten. Tom Martinez stopped by around 2100 bringing beer and intel. Got something interesting, he said, settling into Grandma's rocking chair. Ran into Hank Williams at the hardware store, remember him? Worked county permitting for 40 years. Yeah, good man. Well, Hank remembers when the Pembertons first showed up. Says Richard tried to get permits for lake development back in 2018. Got denied. Why? Water rights issues, environmental concerns, historical preservation. Take your pick. Tom took a long pull of beer, so they went to Plan B form and HOA, force out the old owners, buy cheap, develop anyway. RICO, I said. Racketeering. This is textbook. If you can prove it, and if you can find someone to prosecute it, Richard's got judges, Victoria's got money, they've got the sheriff. What have I got? Tom smiled. You've got something they didn't count on. You've got the water. I looked out at Pine Ridge Lake, dark under the stars. Grandma knew, didn't she, about the water rights? Rose Morrison was the smartest woman in 3 counties. Yeah, she knew. She also knew her grandson was the only one who could use that knowledge. Tom, I need everything. Every document about water rights, every survey, every federal statute. Already started pulling it together, but Jake, once you play that card, there's no going back. They'll come at you with everything. Let them come. I meant it. But that night, for the first time since coming home, I checked my windows before bed, locked the doors, kept my service weapon close. The war was escalating. Time to show them what an army engineer could do when defending home ground. Sarah Chen met me at McGraw's diner at 05:30, 2 weeks after the vandalism. Early enough that even Betty wasn't there yet. Sarah had insisted on the pre-dawn meeting, said she couldn't risk being seen with me during normal hours. She slid into the booth carrying a banker's box, eyes darting to the windows. The smell of fear mixed with her jasmine perfume. I could lose my job for this, she whispered, pushing the box across the table. Hell, I could lose more than that. What did you find? Everything. Jake, it's so much worse than we thought. I opened the box, property records, bank statements, corporate filings, the paper trail of a conspiracy. Start from the beginning, I said. Sarah pulled out a folder, hands shaking slightly. 17 properties taken by the HOA since 2019. But that's just Pine Ridge. They've done this before. Different names, same players. She showed me incorporation documents. Pine Valley Estates, HOA, 2016, disbanded 2018 after all lakefront property acquired. Meadowbrook Highlands HOA, 2014, same pattern. Silver Creek Estates, 2012. 5 different communities, Sarah continued. Always the same. Form HOA, force out owners, develop. We're talking about $400 million in development over 10 years. The Pembertons can't be doing this alone. They're not. She pulled out corporate records. Wellington Development is just the front. Behind it, Ashford Holdings, Pemberton Properties, and look at the board of directors. I scanned the names. County commissioners, state senators. A federal judge. Jesus. It gets better or worse. Sarah showed me bank records. The HOA fines? They don't go into a real HOA account. They get laundered through 3 different LLCs before landing in Wellington Development. That's wire fraud, the federal crime. How did you get bank records? She looked away. My ex works at First National. He owed me a favor. But Jake, look at this. A spreadsheet showing property acquisitions and subsequent sales. The pattern was clear. Properties forced to sell at 30 to 40% below market value. Resold to Wellington Development at 60% below market. Then developed and sold at 300% profit. They made $8.7 million just off Pine Ridge so far, Sarah said. Your property is the key to Phase 1. Without it, they can't build the marina. Without the marina, the whole development fails. So they need me gone. Within the next fiscal quarter, according to their investor reports, they've already pre-sold 40 units based on marina access. I studied the documents. The scope was staggering, but something nagged at me. Sarah, how long have you been collecting this? She met my eyes. Since they tried to take my parents' restaurant 2 years ago, said the parking lot violated setback requirements. Requirements they created after the fact. What happened? My parents sold. Couldn't afford the legal fight. They died 6 months later. Both of them. Doctor said it was stress-related. Now I understood the fear and the anger. There's one more thing, she said, pulling out a final folder. I found out why they needed this specific lake. Inside were geological surveys, water table maps, and there, highlighted in yellow, the thing that made it all make sense. The aquifer, I breathed, one of the largest untapped freshwater aquifers in the southeast. Worth more than all the development combined if water rights are secured, and guess who's been quietly buying water rights throughout the county? Wellington Development. Through Shell's companies, but yes. Jake, this isn't just about lakefront condos, this is about controlling water for half the state. We're talking billions. I sat back, mind racing. This was bigger than HOA corruption. This was resource theft on a massive scale. We need the FBI, I said. With what proof? Half these documents I'm not supposed to have. The other half they'll say are coincidence. And who's going to investigate? The sheriff? The judges they own? She was right. We needed more. We needed leverage. Does Tom know about this? Some, not all. I was afraid to tell anyone except... She paused. Your grandmother knew. She figured out the water angle, said she had a plan to stop them. What plan? I don't know. She died before she could tell me. But I was starting to understand. Grandma, the surveyor. Grandma, who'd marked water flow patterns on old maps. Grandma, who'd sent me to find documents from 1847. Sarah, I need you to do something. File a FOIA request for all Army Corps of Engineers documentation related to Pine Ridge Lake, flood control, navigation studies, everything. That'll take weeks. I've got contacts who can expedite, but it needs to be official. Legal. She nodded. What are you planning? I'm not sure yet, but if they want a water war, they're about to learn what fighting an Army Corps engineer means. After Sarah left, I sat in the empty diner, watching the sun rise over Pine Ridge. The corruption ran deep. The money was bigger than I'd imagined. But they'd made one mistake. They'd killed my grandmother. Maybe not directly, but the stress, the fighting, the threats. It had killed her as surely as a bullet, and for that, I was going to destroy them. Legally, thoroughly, completely. My phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. Stop digging or join your grandmother. I smiled. They were scared. Good. I texted back. Bring it. 2,200 hours. 2 nights after meeting Sarah, I'd been through every box in Grandma's attic, tax records, birthday cards, 40 years of National Geographic, but nothing about water rights beyond what I'd already found. Then I noticed the desk, Grandpa's old roll top pushed against the wall. The wood smelled of lemon oil. Grandma had maintained it religiously. Something was off about the depth. The drawers didn't go back as far as they should. I felt around the back panel. There, a catch. The false back swung open, revealing a space stuffed with documents. The first envelope was marked for Jake, when needed. Inside, Grandma's handwriting. My dear boy, if you're reading this, then they finally made their move. Your grandfather always said the water would be worth more than gold someday. He was right. Use this wisely. Make them pay. Behind her letter, documents that made my hands shake. The original 1847 water rights grant. Not a copy, the original. Wax seals, signatures, and language that no modern lawyer had sanitized. All waters flowing through, into, or upon said property shall be under the sole and perpetual control of the Morrison heirs, with full right to direct, divert, retain, or release said waters as needed for the protection and beneficial use of their lands. But that wasn't the ace. The ace was a federal document from 1933 U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Flood Control Act implementation. Pine Ridge Lake, designated control structure. During the Depression, the Corps had built subtle flood control measures throughout the southeast. Pine Ridge Lake was designated as an emergency retention basin. And the Morrison property? We were the control point. Attached were the technical drawings. 3 concrete structures disguised as decorative bridges and landscaping features. Manual control gates that could raise the lake level by 8 feet or drop it by 6. Grandpa hadn't just built a boathouse, he'd maintained federal flood control infrastructure. I called Tom Martinez. Get over here. Now. He arrived in 20 minutes, still in pajamas under his jacket. I showed him the documents. Holy hell, he breathed. Rose knew about this? She was the county surveyor. Of course she knew. Look at this. A maintenance log in Grandpa's writing. Twice yearly inspections. Tests of the gate mechanisms, all documented, all filed with the Corps. Until 1987, when the program was quietly discontinued. Funding cut, infrastructure abandoned in place, but never decommissioned, never transferred. Still technically federal property under Morrison stewardship. Jake, do you understand what this means? It means the HOA has been claiming authority over federal infrastructure. It means their Marina violated federal law by altering water flow patterns. It means you can flood them out, legally. I pulled up the Marina plans on my laptop, compared them to the flood control maps. At full release, the water would rise exactly to the federal flood line, established in 1933, marked by brass monuments. Every original property, including mine, was built above that line. The Marina, 6 feet below it. It's perfect, Tom said. Rose, you beautiful genius. But I needed confirmation. Needed to know the infrastructure still worked. Tom, I need you to keep watch. I'm going to inspect the control gates. Tonight, in the dark? Especially in the dark. I grabbed Grandpa's maintenance tools, still oiled and ready in the basement. A headlamp, the original technical drawings. The first control gate was hidden beneath the old stone bridge at the north end of our property. What looked like decorative stonework concealed a massive steel gate. The access hatch was rusted but opened with the original key. Inside, the mechanism was pristine. Grandpa had coated everything in Cosmoline. The hand crank turned smoothly. The gauge showed gate position, simple, mechanical, reliable. Beautiful, I whispered, running my hands over 1930s American engineering. The second gate was under the decorative waterfall in the garden. The third, beneath the boat dock itself. All functional, all waiting. I sat on the dock afterward, mind racing. This wasn't just about stopping the HOA. This was about honoring every principle I'd sworn to uphold. Using infrastructure as intended. Protecting property rights. Defending American values against corruption. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Mr. Morrison? This is Special Agent Linda Reeves, FBI Charlotte office. I understand you have information about potential RICO violations. Sarah, she must have made the call. I might, I said carefully, but I need guarantees, protection for my sources, and immediate action if I provide evidence. We can discuss that. Can you meet tomorrow? No, they're escalating. But Agent Reeves, you might want to research the intersection of water rights fraud and interstate commerce, especially regarding Wellington development. Are you an attorney, Mr. Morrison? No, ma'am, I'm an engineer, but I know infrastructure, and I know when it's being weaponized against American citizens. A pause. We'll be in touch." After she hung up, I looked out at the lake, peaceful under starlight, but beneath the surface, pressure was building. Time to show Victoria Ashford-Pemberton what happened when you messed with federal infrastructure. Time to show them all what one engineer could do with the right tools. Grandma had left me more than property. She'd left me a weapon. Now I just had to figure out how to use it without becoming like them. 500 hours. 3 days after discovering the gates. I met Mike Johnson at the Waffle House off I-77 neutral ground. He'd driven down from Bragg, still in uniform. The smell of coffee and brotherhood filled the booth. "So let me get this straight," Mike said, pouring syrup on his hash browns like the heathen he was. "You've got functional depression-era, Ebrechim-era flood control infrastructure that nobody knows about. The Corps knows, they just forgot. And you want to use it to flood out a corrupt HOA. Legally, within original parameters." Mike laughed. "Jesus, Jake, only you would weaponize bureaucracy." He pulled out a tablet. "Okay, I did some digging. That FBI agent who called you, she's real, white-collar crime division, and get this, they've been building a case against Wellington Development for 2 years. Why haven't they moved? Needed someone inside, or someone with standing to file federal charges." He grinned. "Enter one pissed-off engineer with federal infrastructure access. What else? Victoria Ashford-Pemberton? Her real name is Victoria Kowalski. Changed it when she married money. Before that? Securities fraud in Jersey. Pled down to misdemeanor. Richard's got his own skeletons. Disbarred in New York for client fund theft. Moved south, past the Carolina bar, buried his past. How deep did you dig? Deep enough to know they've got a burn file on you too. Military service, clean, but they're planning to claim PTSD. Say you're unstable. Dangerous." I smiled. Let them try. We spent 2 hours going over the infrastructure. Mike had pulled the original core files. Everything was there. Test protocols, operational parameters, even the emergency activation procedures. "There's a catch," he said. "You need cause. Can't just flood them because they're assholes. Has to be legitimate flood control need." "Like protecting federal infrastructure from damage?" "Exactly like that." He showed me weather projections. Hurricane season's coming. Tropical storm. Franklin is forming off the coast. Projected path could bring significant rainfall to the Piedmont. How significant? 8 to 12 inches, enough to justify preemptive water management. Perfect. After Mike left, I drove to the county planning office. Time to play concerned citizen. "I'd like to review the environmental impact studies for the Pine Ridge Marina," I told the clerk. "Those are proprietary. Actually, they're public record once filed with the county North Carolina Sunshine Laws." She grumbled but produced the files. I spent 3 hours photographing every page. The studies were a joke, fabricated data, ignored water flow impacts. And most damning, no mention of the federal flood control infrastructure they'd built over. That evening, Tom Martinez introduced me to his nephew, Eduardo. Recent law school grad, hungry, smart. "T.O. Tom says you need help with water law." "I need someone who can file federal injunctions in their sleep." Eduardo grinned. "That's third-year curriculum. What are we fighting?" I laid out the case. His eyes got wider with each document. This is huge. RICO Clean Water Act tots at fraud interstate commerce. We could hit them from 12 different angles. I need 15, and I need them filed simultaneously. When? The moment I activate those floodgates. He nodded slowly. "You're going to time it with the storm." "I'm going to save federal infrastructure from damage due to illegal construction. If some people built where they shouldn't have..." I shrugged. Plausible deniability. I like it. We worked until midnight crafting legal documents. Eduardo had the fire of youth and the precision of someone with everything to prove. By the time we finished, we had a legal broadside that would make Wellington Development's lawyers weep. The next morning brought another inspection. This time, the fire marshal. "Anonymous tip about hazardous materials," he said apologetically. "Coffee's hazardous before I've had enough. Come on in." I watched him work, noting how his eyes kept drifting to his phone. Finally, I asked, "How much are they paying you?" He flushed. "I don't know what..." "It's okay. I know you're just doing your job. But here's something to consider. In about a week, the FBI is going to arrest half the county government for corruption. You want to be on the right side of that." He left without finding any violations. That afternoon, I started my real preparations, tested each gate again, calculated flow rates, mapped exact water levels. The marina had been built at 642 feet above sea level. Federal flood stage was 648 feet. My property started at 651 feet. 6 feet. That's all I needed. 6 feet to destroy their investment while keeping every legitimate property safe. Sarah Chen called as I was reviewing calculations. Jake, they've moved up the foreclosure. You've got 10 days. They're scared. They should be. I've got something else. Remember those pre-sales they made? The contracts specify Marina access. Without the Marina, they're in breach. The penalties? She paused for effect. $47 million. The same number they tried to steal from honest homeowners. Poetic. Sarah, make copies of everything. Multiple locations. Deadman switches. The works. Already done. Jake, be careful. There's talk around the courthouse. Ugly talk. That night, I walked the property with new eyes. Not just as grandma's heir, but as custodian of federal infrastructure. Protector of water rights. Defender of what was right. The storm was coming in more ways than one. Time to show them what an engineer could build. Not structures, not developments. Justice, drop a comment if you've ever seen someone use the system against those who abuse it. Because that's exactly what was about to happen at Pine Ridge Lake. T-minus 72 hours. The knock came at 0200, loud.authoritative, the kind that said police without words. I answered in boxers and body armor, old habits. Sheriff Deputy Williams stood there, looking uncomfortable. Behind him, 2 more deputies, and behind them, Richard Pemberton in a silk bathrobe. Mr. Morrison, Williams started, we have a warrant to search the premises. For what? Richard smiled. Terrorist threats. We have credible intelligence you're planning to damage critical infrastructure. I almost laughed. The irony was beautiful. Let me see the warrant. It was real. Signed by Richard's golf buddy, Judge Harmon. Broad enough to seize everything, including my grandmother's recipe box. Come on in, I said. Mi casa es su casa. They searched for 4 hours. Found nothing because there was nothing to find. The infrastructure documents were with Eduardo. The gate keys were in my pocket. The plans existed only in my head. Richard got increasingly frustrated as box after box revealed only family memories. Where is it? He finally snapped. Where's what? Whatever you're planning, we know you've been meeting with agitators, threatening the community. Agitators? You mean fellow veterans, citizens exercising their First Amendment rights? Deputy Williams cleared his throat. We're done here, Mr. Pemberton. Nothing suspicious found. Check again. Sir, we've been thorough. The warrant's been executed. As they left, Richard leaned close. You think you're smart? But I've destroyed better men than you. Ask your grandmother. I grabbed his silk lapel. Soft, expensive. Weak. Say her name again. Please. Williams stepped between us. Gentlemen, let's all calm down. After they left, I called Eduardo. They're rattled. File the first wave of injunctions. All of them? Everything except the main battery. Save those for the finale. T-minus 48 hours. Tropical storm. Franklin had strengthened to Category 1, projected landfall, Carolina coast, inland rainfall, 10-15 inches. I spent the morning at the VFW hall spreading the word. Veterans know how to organize, how to prepare, how to stand together. Sandbags, old Colonel Martinez, Tom's brother, barked. Every original property, shore up the foundations. What about the new construction? Someone asked. They've got HOA fees for that, Tom said, grim laughter all around. By noon, we had work parties at every threatened property, every home built before the HOA. Victoria's security drove by repeatedly documenting our efforts. Let them watch. Let them wonder. Sarah Chen met me at the hardware store. The FBI moved. Subpoenas went out this morning. Wellington Development's accounts are frozen. All of them? Every shell company. They can't access a dime. She smiled. Also, that fire marshal? He flipped, gave the FBI everything about the bribes. The dominoes were falling. Time to give them a push. That evening, Victoria herself appeared at my door. No entourage, no horses, just her and desperation poorly disguised as designer confidence. We need to talk, she said. So talk. May I come in? No. She shifted on her porch-inappropriate heels. I'm prepared to make you an offer. The HOA will forgive all fines. In exchange, you drop whatever you're planning. I'm planning to protect federal infrastructure from storm damage. Don't play games. I know you've been talking to the FBI. I know about the injunctions. What do you want? I pretended to consider. Full dissolution of the HOA, each return of all fined amounts. Resignation of the entire board. Criminal confession for the fraud. Her laugh was bitter. You're insane. No, I'm an engineer. I deal in facts. Fact, you built a marina in a federal flood zone. Fact, you altered water flow patterns without core permits. Fact, storm surge will destroy your illegal construction. Unless? There is no unless. Physics doesn't negotiate. She stepped closer, perfume like a weapon. Everyone has a price. Name yours. I already did. Justice. Justice doesn't pay bills. Neither does a flooded marina. Her composure finally cracked completely. You wouldn't dare. The lawsuit alone would go to federal court, where you're already under investigation, where judges actually read water law, where your husband has no friends. I'll destroy you. Ma'am, better people than you have tried. I'm still here. They're not. She left in a spray of gravel and profanity. I watched her go, then called Mike. She just tried to bribe me, got it recorded. Beautiful. Add it to the pile. Storm's tracking closer, by the way. You ready? I looked out at the lake. Calm, peaceful, deceptive. Almost. One more piece to place. T-minus 24 hours. The piece arrived at 0900. Special Agent Linda Reeves, 3 other agents, and enough recording equipment to film a movie. Mr. Morrison, she said, all business. We're prepared to offer you full immunity in exchange for your cooperation. I don't need immunity. I haven't broken any laws. No, but you're about to do something that will cost certain people millions. They'll sue. They'll claim damages. We can protect you. I showed her the water rights documents, the Corps' authorization, the maintenance logs. Her smile was sharp. You beautiful bastard, it's all legal. Every bit. I'm required to protect federal infrastructure. The storm poses a threat. I'm responding according to established protocols, which happen to flood out the people we're investigating. Coincidence is a funny thing. We spent 6 hours documenting everything. Chain of custody for evidence, sworn statements, technical specifications. When? Reeves asked. When the storm requires it, when water levels threaten the integrity of the control structures. And when will that be? I checked the weather. About 36 hours from now. She stood. We'll have teams in place documenting everything. When those waters rise, we want video of every violation they reveal. After they left, I made one last inspection of the gates, oiled the mechanisms, checked the seals, everything perfect. That night, the rain started. Gentle at first. Testing. I sat on the porch, listening to it drum on Grandma's metal roof. Somewhere across the lake, Victoria Ashford-Pemberton was probably pacing her mansion, watching the water rise inch by inch. She had no idea what was coming. The infrastructure was ready. The law was on our side. The storm was building. In 36 hours, Pine Ridge Lake would remember why our ancestors built above the floodline, and Victoria would learn why you don't steal from an engineer who understands water. Grandma's wind chimes sang in the rising breeze, almost like approval, almost like justice. Sunda 47 a.m. Victory Day. The rain had been falling for 18 hours. Steady, relentless. Perfect. I stood at control gate number 1, rain streaming off my Corps-issued jacket. The lake level gauge read 646.8 feet, just 1.2 feet below federal flood stage. The marina docks were already straining. Time. I inserted the brass key. 90 years old, but it turned like silk. The access hatch opened, revealing the mechanism that would deliver justice. For you, Grandma, I whispered, and began turning the wheel. The gate rose inch by inch. Water that had been pressing against it for decades found freedom. The surge was beautiful, controlled, measured, purposeful. My phone buzzed. Tom Martinez. Gate 3 activated. Then Eduardo. Gate 2 open. Legal flood control measures in effect. We'd coordinated perfectly. 3 gates, opened simultaneously, managing water flow to prevent damage to legitimate structures while maximizing impact on illegal ones. I climbed to my observation point, the hill behind Grandma's house. FBI surveillance vans were already in position. Drones buzzed overhead, documenting everything. By 6:15 a.m., the marina was in trouble. Water lapped at the decking. Boats strained against their lines. The illegal floating docks, built without permits, anchored improperly, began their death dance. My phone rang. Victoria screaming before I could speak. What have you done? Executed federal flood control protocols as required by the 1933 Infrastructure Act. I'll sue you for everything. Ma'am, I'm protecting government property according to established procedures. Your marina appears to be experiencing difficulties. Perhaps you should have checked the flood maps before building. You know what you've done? You've destroyed everything. No, ma'am. Water destroyed everything. I just managed its flow, as is my legal obligation. She hung up or threw her phone. Hard to tell. By 7 a.m., the first dock broke free. $500,000 of illegal construction became driftwood. The boats. Oh, the boats. Turns out rich people don't always secure their toys properly. A Mastercraft ski boat broke loose first, then a Sea Ray, then the Crown Jewel, someone's Cobalt CS-23, They pinballed through the marina, causing more damage than the water alone. Tom called. You seeing this? Every beautiful minute. Eduardo's already in court, first injunction granted. The marina's officially condemned as a navigation hazard. By 8 a.m., local news had arrived. The narrative was perfect. Historic flood control infrastructure saves original homes, while recent illegal construction suffers massive damage. Sheriff Williams appeared at 8:47 a.m., Richard Pemberton in tow. Mr. Morrison, Williams said carefully, Mr. Pemberton is demanding your arrest. On what charge? Terrorism. Destruction of property, take your pick. I handed him a folder. Sheriff, this contains federal authorization for emergency flood control measures, signed by the Corps District Commander yesterday. Also included documentation showing Mr. Pemberton's marina violated federal law. You arrest me, you're interfering with federal infrastructure protection. Williams read. His face went through several shades. Additionally, I continued, Special Agent Reeves of the FBI would like a word. She's in the white van. Richard's face went from red to white. This is ridiculous. You can't. Actually, I can, and did. Sheriff, you might want to distance yourself from Mr. Pemberton. The FBI has questions about his bribery attempts. William stepped away from Richard like he was radioactive. By 10 a.m., the water had reached exactly 648 feet. Federal flood stage. Not an inch higher. Every original home sat safe above the water line. The marina was gone. The HOA's clubhouse, built too low despite warnings, had 6 inches of water in its foundation. Then the real show began. FBI agents swarmed the Pemberton estate. Victoria, in designer rain boots and running mascara, was led out in handcuffs. Richard tried to run, didn't make it past his driveway. The news crews caught everything. The arrest, the ruined marina, the original homeowners standing safe on their protected property. But the best part came at noon. Sarah Chen had one last surprise. She'd found the smoking gun in Victoria's own files, emails discussing the elimination of obstacles, including one Rose Morrison. They hadn't killed Grandma directly, but they'd made her last month's hell. Constant harassment, threats, stress that weakened her heart. Now they'd pay for it. PM, the aftermath. The community center was packed. Every original homeowner, most of the veterans from 3 counties, immediate FBI agents, and one very satisfied engineer. Tom Martinez had called an emergency meeting. As the senior remaining board member, the others being in custody, he had authority. Motion to dissolve the Pine Ridge Estates Homeowners Association, he announced. Second, shouted 40 voices. All in favor? The AYE shook the windows. Motion carries. The HOA is dissolved. All fines are void. All lines released. Cheers. Tears. Justice. Sarah Chen found me afterward. Jake, the federal prosecutor says it's RICO for sure. 20 years minimum for the Pembertons, more for the others. And the civil suits? She grinned. Wellington Development's insurance won't cover illegal acts. They're personally liable. They'll lose everything. What about the water rights? Returned to original owners. The aquifer scheme is dead. Oh, and that pre-sale penalty? The buyers are suing for breach. $47 million. The exact amount they'd tried to steal through fines. Poetry. That evening, I sat on Grandma's porch. The water was already receding. Controlled drainage returning the lake to normal. The infrastructure had worked perfectly. Eduardo stopped by with champagne. We won every injunction. Set precedent for HOA limitations, statewide. Law review articles for years. You did good, counselor. We did good, all of us. Tom Martinez joined us, along with a dozen other neighbors. We drank, we remembered, we planned. What now? Someone asked. Now we rebuild, I said. The right way. Community association, not homeowners. Equal voice for everyone. And the first rule, no harassment of longtime residents. I'll drink to that. As the sun set over Pine Ridge Lake, I thought about Grandma. She'd known this day would come, planned for it, left me not just property, but purpose. The Pembertons thought they were stealing land. They were really stealing heritage. Community. Hope. They forgot one thing. Water always finds its level, and justice, like water, can't be stopped forever. Just redirected by someone who understands the flow. The morning mist rose off Pine Ridge Lake like nature's absolution. I sat on the rebuilt dock, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise paint the water gold. 6 months. That's all it took to transform a battlefield back into a community. Victoria Ashford-Pemberton got 18 years federal time. Turns out the FBI found more than just HOA fraud, tax evasion, money laundering, wire fraud. The works. Last I heard, she was teaching yoga to fellow inmates at FCI Tallahassee. Her designer days were over. Richard got 22 years. The judge particularly didn't like attorneys who betrayed their oath. His brother-in-law, the sheriff, pled out for 5 years, sang like a canary about everyone involved. The Marina was gone, returned to nature. We'd voted to keep it that way. The lake belonged to everyone, not just those who could afford yacht club fees. Tom Martinez sat down beside me, handing over fresh coffee. Council meeting tonight. You coming? Wouldn't miss it. We'd formed the Pine Ridge Community Council. Not an HOA, God forbid, but a voluntary association. No power to fine, no authority to foreclose. Just neighbors helping neighbors, the way it should be. Sarah called, Tom continued. Final settlement came through. Wellington Development's assets liquidated, every fined homeowner getting full restitution plus damages. How much? Average of $100,000 per household. The Changs are using theirs to reopen their restaurant. I smiled. Money couldn't replace what we'd lost, but it helped balance the scales. And the foundation? I asked. Rose Morrison? Foundation for Property Rights is officially registered. Eduardo's agreed to run the legal aid division. Free help for anyone facing HOA abuse. Grandma would have loved that. Her name protecting others from what she'd fought. A boat puttered by, Mike Jefferson, whose property had been saved from foreclosure. He waved. I waved back. Simple gestures that meant everything. Jake, Tom said quietly, I need to tell you something about Rose. I waited. She knew she was dying. Heart was giving out. But she held on, fighting those bastards because she knew you'd come home, knew you'd finish it. My throat tightened. Tom. She said you'd know what to do with the water, said her engineer grandson would understand what others couldn't. She was right. I couldn't speak, just nodded. One more thing. He pulled out an envelope. She left this with me, said to give it to you after the fight was won. Inside, Grandma's handwriting, oh, my dearest Jake, if you're reading this, then you've done what I knew you would. You've protected our home. You've saved our community. You've shown them that right matters more than might. I'm proud of you. Always have been. From the angry 8-year-old who came to live with us to the man who serves others before himself. You are the best of us. The house is yours, but you already know that. What you might not know is what's buried beneath the third fence post from the gate. Your grandfather left something for the grandson he never met. Something about water being more precious than gold. Take care of our lake. Take care of our neighbors. Take care of yourself. All my love, Grandma. I found it that evening, a mason jar, sealed with wax, buried 3 feet down. Inside, gold coins from the 1930s, 50 of them, and a note from Grandpa. For the guardian of the waters, use wisely. Worth maybe $100,000 at today's prices, enough to ensure the property taxes would never force a sale, enough to keep the land in the family forever. But the real treasure was the community we'd saved. The neighbors who now looked out for each other, the veterans who'd found purpose again, the families who could keep their homes. Eduardo had taken 3 cases to the state Supreme Court, setting precedents that limited HOA power across North Carolina. Other states were following suit. The Rose Morrison Foundation had helped 847 families in 6 months. The water rights remained with the original owners. The aquifer was protected. The lake was free. As for me, I still lived in Grandma's house, still maintained the flood control infrastructure, now officially recognized and funded by the Corps. Still drank coffee on the porch each morning. But now I wasn't alone. The community had rallied. Neighbors checked on neighbors. Potlucks happened monthly. Kids fished from the public dock we'd rebuilt. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever is. But it was ours. Protected by law, precedent, and the knowledge that someone would always stand watch. The sun climbed higher, burning off the mist. Across the lake, an osprey dove for fish. Life continued. My phone buzzed, a text from a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Morrison, my name is Janet Stewart from Texas. Our HOA is trying to foreclose on my elderly mother. I heard about what you did. Can you help? I smiled and typed back, contact the Rose Morrison Foundation. We'll help. That's what we do. Because Grandma was right. Water does find its level. Justice does flow. And sometimes, just sometimes, the good guys win. Not through force, not through money, but through knowledge, determination, and the simple refusal to let bullies win. The infrastructure still stands. The gates still work. And if anyone tries to steal from this community again, well, they'll learn what Victoria Ashford-Pemberton learned. Never mess with an engineer who understands water, never mess with a veteran who protects his own, and never, ever mess with Rose Morrison's grandson. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment if you believe in standing up to bullies. If you faced HOA harassment, if you think communities should protect each other, like and subscribe for more stories of justice served. Next time, I'll tell you about the Marine who took down a corrupt city council using nothing but Robert's Rules of Order and a very detailed spreadsheet. Until then, remember, your rights matter, your home matters, and somewhere out there, someone's fighting for both. Stay strong, stay smart, and always, always read the fine print, especially the parts about water rights. Especially